It's time for Push to Play, your weekly trophy podcast with Mindi and CJ.
Hey listeners, what's up? Welcome to episode 29 of Push to Plat. That is 3 weeks in a row, Mindi, that I've mixed up the intro. I'm on fire. I am going to go back to the old intro next week. I apologize.
I'm so happy you said that because I was going to ask you to do that.
I've gone too far off the book, haven't I? I can feel it. Is this what happens when you?
Yeah, a little bit.
This is what happens when you've been sick for a while and you finally wean yourself off the meds and everything comes back into focus again and you're like, why is everybody moving so slowly? Why is everything so green again? Why can't I see the sky? But look, that's how it is. That's how it is here in Sydney today, listeners. How are you, Mindi? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. That's about it.
Excellent. Yes. Well, look. From that, listeners, I took that Mindi is in fact good, in case you were wondering. So, look, without further ado, why don't we introduce our guest today? Now, we are very privileged to have a special guest today. It is not often you find a Queenslander with all his teeth that can string together a sentence. But look, we have one today, and a weeb. I think I can call him a weeb. I didn't ask him, but I'm sure he'll allow that today. A bit of a Japanese master of games. I think we're going to find out as we go today. But Reddy, how are you today, sir?
I'm all right, thanks.
Oh, excellent. Good.
Should I elaborate? Oh, sorry, we just already got through that on the pre-show.
Yeah, we did. We had a great chat before. But look, why don't you elaborate? Because look, we know each other from some time past. But the listeners probably don't know you. So would you like to share like a little bit about your gaming background or yourself, if you like?
Yeah, sure. I was born in the early 80s, so maybe by about age 6, I kind of became aware of the Commodore 64 at my grandparents' next door, and I hit that up hard. At some point, again, when I'm a small kid, there was an arcade across the road, and I really spent as much time as humanly possible there for a while there, and I eventually conned my mother into buying me a Master System. Because my dad was like, "Why do you want that?" But no, I eventually conned her into doing that, and I had a very small library for a while, and then we got a personal computer, which of course was for school use, but it had games on it. We started off with the 286. So and yeah, one of the first, I think the first game I ever beat on the PC. I'm just going to get straight into this. Was a game called Captain Comic, which I heard mentioned.
I don't believe.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that on the first episode of the podcast, and I've remembered it ever since, and I thought I've got to talk to you about that one day. So, did you finish it at all?
We are the only two people in the world that know that game. I think. Did it really exist? I'm so glad you mentioned
it. Yes, it did.
I thought I just made this, this reminiscent childhood memory, perhaps, of a game that never existed. But no, look. I mean, yeah. I don't want to sidetrack your story, but what happened? Similarly, like the computer. I mean, it could barely run anything, let alone that. But we had my parents were not into this sort of thing at all. But my dad ended up getting a computer somehow through work or something else. And anyway, the kids up the street, and they were really into all this sort of stuff, and they came down and they set it up and they put this game on it. And so there would have been like me and my brother, and then there were like 5 or 4 of them at that stage. So there were like 6 kids crammed into this little room, and everyone got to go. And then when you died, like if you died once, then it was the next person's turn. So it was like a collaborative effort, if you like. In fact, if you like, we were the first team, I suppose, the first team account. But yeah, look, I don't know that we ever finished it though. Did you? Was there any?
Yes, I did. There was. Now, the thing about that game is, it's a side scroller, but actually, when you look at the entire game, it's fairly kind of non-linear. You do some backtracking, you get items and health to advance, and yeah, there you go. You know what I'm getting at, Minnie. It's a Metroidvania.
I was gonna bring it up when.
Yeah. So the first game I ever finished was a Metroidvania, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah, I had to bring that up immediately before I forget about it. But that was the first game I beat. It was a Metroidvania. It's one of the first games you played, CJ, which was a Metroidvania. How do you feel about that?
Look, I've got to ring my psychologist again. This has been a big week for me, listeners.
Everything he knows is a lie.
I can see the similarities between Captain Comic and Ori and the Blind Forest, actually, now that you mention it. So, oh my goodness. Look, I'm glad you mentioned that game. That's fantastic.
So, yeah. So sorry, I've already gone off on a tangent, and we're about 2 minutes in. But look, I'll just keep going. I'll I'll try and wrap this up. So yeah, after the 8-bit era, I kind of I got a Mega Drive, and look, I was playing on my friends' Nintendos quite a lot, but I was never really pro Nintendo. I was more interested in the arcades, and so I wanted the Sega systems for these arcade ports, which were always pretty shit. They really weren't good compared to the arcades, and the Mega Drive was fantastic for me for a while, and then when the PS1 and Saturn came out, I did want a Saturn. That was $800, and the PS1 was $700. So by the time the PS1 was like a more affordable $400, the Saturn was just gone, and I begrudgingly, just went and bought a PS1. And then when the Dreamcast came out, I bought that day one. I was super happy to have a Sega system again, and that lasted like a year and a half or something. And I just hit up emulators, and caught up on a heap of stuff. And I begrudgingly bought a PS2 about midway through that generation, and I went around to a mate's house and he had it modified. And this was for piracy reasons, but for me, I thought, oh, I could import some stuff because I was aware of that kind of thing because there was an independent place I used to rent my games from in North Queensland, that had imports, and I'd been to America and bought my first import, when I was about 12. I was aware of it, but I had no idea of the full extent of it. And during the PS2, I forgot to mention this, but when the PS1 came into play and everything turned 3D, I just thought that was garbage, and I never accepted it. And I'd try the 3D games, and I thought, wow, we've regressed to the 80s of Atari stuff where it's a challenge just to move your character around. I thought this is just such crap. And, I had a terrible attitude about 3D for probably up until, last generation or something. So I would play them on PS2, but I just rage. And even beating the campaign was an effort for me. So I started importing because I wanted the 2D stuff. I wanted the arcade ports. Generation after that, I bought every single console, including the handhelds, and I spread myself really thin because I just assumed that the PS3 would get, everything that the PS2 was getting, but it really didn't. It got nothing. All the weird Japanese stuff ended up on the Wii. All the 2D shoot 'em ups ended up on the 360. You had your RPGs on the bloody DS. So I feel like last gen you had to buy every system to get the full picture, or at least for what I wanted out of games. And then this generation, the way it's a free for all on the PS4 store, for me that's actually perfect. I like all the shovelware, I like all the rubbish, and there's so much good 2D out there that I'm just spoiled. It's too much for me to keep up with, and it's a great problem to have. So I think that's everything. Yeah, cool. That's my whole story. Oh no, wait, no, story at all. When the Xbox came out, I did achievement hunting on there for a minute because my friend who I used to play fighting games with moved to Sydney, and I had him on my list, and so it was a little competition to see which of us could get a better a higher gamer score because he was of a similar skill level. And what I would do was I'd buy my 360 was, both of them are Japanese, so I bought every single 2D shoot 'em up, and these were 80 to $120, 200 for a limited. I really spared no expense on this. I probably spent closer to 10 grand than 5, I guess, on that. But I would just load them up whenever they'd be released. I'd have them, within a week of release, and I'd play them, and I'd get with these games, I'm very familiar with this genre, so I was able to, even if I wasn't able to, beat it, with no continues immediately or something, I could get 500 out of 1,000 gamer score, just sitting down playing it for an hour or two, or maybe a bit more for some of them. So that was a brute force way of getting achievement points, which yeah, sound familiar?
No,
Does that sound familiar to you?
I've heard that's a strategy used on the PlayStation as well, but I can't comment on that. I feel at this point in time.
Well, yeah, because the gamer score was just a total numeric value, it didn't. It felt a lot different to trophies where you have this thing of the platinum. Oh, I've made this progress, but oh, I don't have the platinum, you know? And it took me ages to get into platinum hunting because the PS3 was just such rubbish, you know? It was horrible to work with and work on. And, you know, I had the Xbox, so, you know, I'd seen the brighter side of things. You know, so it was quite difficult. But when the Vita came out, I thought, oh my God, mate, I can sit down, I can play the grindiest, most monotonous bullshit, and it won't matter because I can just have it as a secondary activity. And I thought, now I'm going to start earning trophies, you know. So once the Vita came out, it was still quite slow going. Yeah, but I just started earning just from you know, earning more platinums from just naturally, really. And then once I got up to 50, I sort of went, maybe I'll do some more. And then I thought, oh, I might try and get 100. And this was pre-Radalaika, you know, so I was doing like point and clicks. I did 4 stacks of Puyo Puyo Tetris, and all sorts of stuff like that. And my idea of an easy, you know, easy platinum was maybe a 6 to 20 hour kind of deal, you know, and it would end up being maybe a 20 to 30%. So, you know, I felt like I worked my ass off to get to 100. And then, you know, I wanted to do that Australian trophy event on the PSNP forums. I just wanted to do the Australian one, but I didn't have enough posts at the time. So, and I eventually got to the 50 posts within, you know, the year that I had to wait or something. But, you know, in the interim period, there was that 3-month thing that I won, and that's when we sort of started talking. And yeah, and after that, I did the other one where I was grossly handicapped from spamming so much from the previous competition, but I still, you know, so I'd never thought about the 90% platinums before that. And, you know, I don't have any regrets, right? I don't think they look amazing. I don't think they look too great. And it constitutes half my list now. People I met when I was doing those events just sort of like, you know, I still play with some of them. It made it all worthwhile. So I got no regrets. But, you know, that's why I have all that stuff on my list if, you know, anyone goes and looks and wonders.
Can I ask you a question that has nothing to do
Sure.
with video
Oh,
games?
absolutely.
You said you're in Queensland, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the Australia Zoo?
Steve Irwin one, I don't think so. I think I camped at the Billabong Sanctuary for, you know, a school camp one time. And no, I don't think I have. I've been out to the Barrier Reef. I've been to the Daintree Forest. You know, I've been to the nice places in Queensland for the most part. But, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. So that was a fantastic diversion.
I'm just curious. I really want to go there.
Yes.
You really want to go there?
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
You can like pet animals and shit. You can't do that anywhere here.
True. Bloody hell.
So you're telling me in America you can carry a gun, you can drink, you can do whatever you want. You've got your Second Amendment right there you're clinging to, yet you're not allowed pet animals. Is that where they draw the line?
Well, not the ones you can pet at the Australians, because you could literally pet like a tiger there, right?
Can you?
Or the native Australian tiger.
Just go to a zoo and pet a tiger.
Hang on, the Tasmanian tiger's been extinct for ages. What kind of tiger are we talking about?
No, not the Tasmanian one. That's oh my god, that's the one that can unhinge its jaw, right? The Tasmanian tiger.
Oh, who knows? I mean, we only have.
You sure that's an animal?
I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
I like it. So look, Mindi, you've distracted us from our journey here. So why don't we just move straight into the question for this week?
Oh yeah, I do have that. Thylacine, that's the name of the Tasmanian tiger. Yeah. And you learned something today. All right, so this week's question is from George Pereira, I want to say. Sorry if I did not pronounce your name correctly. He says, if you could have a Pokemon follow you around in real life, which would it be and how would you use it?
Well, please don't stop me from holding your axes back. Go for it.
Well, I thought about it a minute ago, and I'm still thinking about it, to be honest. But I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I definitely one of the bigger ones. Do I still live in my apartment? Like that, because that really would influence my answer.
how about having a Squirtle and you just take it around? It could just water your garden or something. That might be nice. That's a kind of nice practical.
No, I get one of the flying ones. I just don't know what I would get. Because then you could fly around. That'd be kind of cool. So like a Charizard or something. Okay, so my disclaimer here is I only played the first generation of Pokemon games, so I'm sure there's probably better ones in the later. But I never played those, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, I would say some flying one, probably Charizard, because then I could burn people up, and that'd be pretty cool too. I'm just looking down a list real quick of the Generation 1 stuff. Or no, what if or I'd get a Ditto because it can transform into any of the other Pokemon, but the caveat of that is I would only do that if he didn't have to, like, be in front of, like, a real one of the Pokemon. If I could just, like, show him a picture of, like, a Charizard and be like, "Turn into this." And it would be like, "Okay."
I'm going to jump in here, Mr. Boston 10 George, and I'm going to say I don't like the direction your questions are taking. Pokemon, you are a respectable father, yeah, of I'm not sure how many. You're a Star Ocean player. What are you doing here? And what do you think I'm doing? I don't have time for these Pokemon. I don't know which one. I don't want any of them following me around. Which one do you want following you around like a stalker? I mean, we are adults, respectable, to a degree, listeners, adults. What is going on here? Why are you sending questions about Pokemon? I don't understand it. Let's go back to the tattoo questions. Much better. Yeah, we can do better. Yeah. Now, please, did you have anything else to say?
If you could have any Pokemon tattoo, what would it be?
Look, the only Pokemon I know is Pikachu. Is he a Pokemon? Or she? I don't even know what it
Yeah.
is. Good. Excellent. So I'm going to go with the Detective Pikachu. Yeah. And look, George, I think my nightmare, probably the scariest thing that could happen to me is being forced to watch that movie. So I can't imagine having one of those things following me around, slowly catching up to me, a bit like that It Follows movie. And it just slowly, you can feel it. It's slowly getting you. And then, one night it just climbs up and it ends you. And then it's all over. And you never platted Star Ocean. And you put 500 or 600 hours in it. You're just like, this is just life. This is what it is. But why did I submit a Pokemon question? Anyway, so let's move on from the Pokemon business.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm not a Pokemon fan. Why did he not ask? Because the only thing I know about Pokemon is this Pokemon Go. But then we've got the Harry Potter Go, in effect, the Harry Potter mobile game. Why didn't he ask about that? That would have been interesting. Maybe next week. We can talk about that. But anyway, look, let's move on to some new. Sorry, not new. Just to what we've been playing. So, Reddy, do you want to kick us off? What have you been playing?
Sure. All right. Well, so we're just doing. No, I'll do a little bit beyond the last week because recently, yeah, I will. I'll do about 2 or 3 weeks worth. Recently I had the impulse to do a tween block. So that's because they're all on special, and I've been waiting for them to go on sale for a while. And yeah, so I did Bibi Blocksberg Big Broom Race 3, Bibi and Tina Adventures with Horses, and My Riding Stables Life with Horses, all within about the span of a week or two. And it was pretty awful. The broom race thing has a drift mechanic where you need to drift on the outside of the track, not the inside of the track like every racing game ever, but on the outside of the track. You have to drift. You basically have to race badly to beat the levels, and then at the end you've got a random glitch that you have to just wait for so that your teammates get in first, or second, third, and fifth, and you come in first, and then that pops it. It's stupid, mate. It was
So, do you
stupid.
think that's what it is? Because that trophy is really confusing, isn't it?
That's all you have to do,
Do you
yeah,
see-
is just wait for that. Yeah, more or less.
So first, second, third, and fifth.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that was terrible.
That seems
Yeah,
logical.
and then Bibi and Tina started off with this German language intro, which is just I think a trailer for the film, and it was amazing. It was so cheesy. Oh, I pissed myself laughing. And then you go into the game, and the facial detail on the characters are worse than like GoldenEye on the 64. I mean, it just. And I don't know. That sounded like I was saying GoldenEye was bad. What I mean is that GoldenEye was better than that in the late 90s. You know what I mean? It was just shocking, eh? And I thought, is this a DS port? But no, I don't think it is. And then, thank you, Mindi, for the guide. My Riding Stables Life with Horses was actually quite good. I played it just completely sober, completely straight. I felt like 5 hours to a day when I was cleaning it up. And you know what? The music's relaxing. The tank controls are horrible, but everything else. And I mean, look, there's a horse called Cream Pie in there. So if nothing else, there's a little deviant laugh in there for somebody. If they're just doing that for their trophy trash. But for me, I like doing that. I think these kinds of spam games that aren't the Radalaika things that every single fucker is doing, they're good to do. I think they're better if I want an easy platinum. And my theory is that if I just keep playing stuff like that that's a little bit, out of the way or something. If I ever do want to rank up, then I've got all the Ratalaika stuff to just do it real quick if I want to, you know. So that's the motivation behind, playing the obscure spam. But
does that
just want to touch on this.
just before you
Yeah,
do, I was going to ask, does that game
yeah.
is it like a story type mode, or is it just like a fetch questies type thing, or what's the actual gameplay
The riding
like?
stables.
Yeah.
The riding stables. Oh, you wake up, you feed your horse, then you do a little mini game to clean it. When you start off, you have to do this horrible foal training. It's timed, and you have to get it to sit in a bloody square. So you press forward and it walks, and you can press forward again to make it walk faster. But it's around this circle, and to make it go up or down, you kind of have to make it walk forward a bit, and then you press up, and then it disobeys you, a certain amount of the time, and you can give it a carrot. But sometimes you just can't get it because it won't give you the prompt to give it a carrot because it's not that disobedient yet, but it's still disobedient enough that it's almost impossible to get it onto the square in time. So yeah, I hated that so much. But everything else about the game was just fine. It was the same thing. I swear, I think even Windstorm had the same mini game mechanics of brushing the horse, pretty much the same kind of thing of picking out the rocks from the hooves and scrubbing that. You can hose it down in this one, but there's also this thing with property and look. I don't think there is any story in that. I don't really remember seeing any at all. Sorry, that was your question. I wasn't even answering it, was I? I was just going on.
That's all right. It sounds like a comprehensive. We love German horse games here, so that sounds like a
Yeah.
comprehensive horsing game. So look at why not? Why not? No, sorry, I stopped you. Please continue on your next one.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, so Assault Gunners, I got this for $12 on sale. It's got 70, that's with DLC. It's got 76 trophies, and yeah, it's a mech game, but it's not particularly slow. You can customize your weapons and body parts, so you can put what do you call it? A much faster set of legs, but you'll get less health. Or something like that. And look, the base game trophy list is quick and easy, and then the DLC is like a little bit harder and a lot grindier, but really no worries, no worries at all. But it was a Vita game initially, and this is I played the PS4 version, and it's structured exactly like a Vita game, and I should say Japanese Vita game. What I mean by that is that you have separated levels, and you pick every single level individually from the menu. There's a completely convoluted bullshit way of unlocking a few of the later levels. This is a feature in almost every bloody Japanese Vita game. And then another feature of almost every Japanese Vita game is once you're done with everything, you'll have to replay the same stage 50 times or more to grind for this bullshit that you no longer need. So it was good though because it was 3D shooting with no reloading, and I was playing that and I thought, wouldn't it be great if you never had to reload? And then I thought, who likes reloading? Why do they even put that in? You know what I mean? So it led me to that kind of train of thought. What else have we got? Sonic Racing. I sort of resurrected that because I bought both versions on impulse years ago. Played them both for an hour and then never touched them again. I thought, hang on, this is exactly the sort of racing I kind of want to play. There's drifting and it's fast and arcade-like. So I've got the PS3 version up there because I needed to test if my PS3 still works because after I had my name change, I turned it on and it acted like it was going to die. And then I just thought, well, the most optimistic way of thinking about this is that it just wigged out because of the name change. And if I turn it on again, it'll be okay. But I procrastinated for months over turning it on, even though it's, $80 to go get a new one. So anyway, yeah, that's why that's there. And all right, so we'll finally get into this week. Fragments of Him, that was a recommendation from you. It's one of the most miserable things I've ever played. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that in a bad way, but I mean, if you're an empathetic person, you'll just be drained by the end of this. Hey, you know what I mean? But I've rarely played something like this, which is a completely realistic story, told well like that, and that's all it is. But it doesn't matter that that's all it is, really. It's just something you experience. It gives you something to think about, but it's just, you know what I mean? There's nothing unrealistic in there whatsoever. And I was like, wow, no fantasy shit or anything. So, and it's completely unique. And for ages, I had this contrarian idea of why don't I do dramatical murder recode or sweet pool? And then I think, no, this game actually fulfilled that bloody, that impulse of doing something like that. I don't know what you call it, gay interest or something, but like for me, I think this is actually tasteful. Whereas the sweet
Mm.
pull and the dramatical motor recode really probably aren't, without having looked at them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that dramatical murder, I was watching the anime once, and my girlfriend came in and she said, "This looks gay," and I said, "Don't be like that." And she said, "No, I really mean it." And I said, "Huh?" So I quick Google search and some interesting images later, and I found, oh wow, yeah, this really is a bloody boys love hentai visual novel that they took all of the sex out of, and I was like, wow, the story's actually quite good, you know. So that was quite surprising, but yeah, no, look, I'm glad I played that one. I think, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't do the visual novels to put, because I like to have something. I kind of would like to have something of everything, on my list. You know what I mean? Themes, types of games, just everything. I like variety. I'm a Libran, so I like the balance.
Yeah, I might just jump in there as well, listeners, and just so that they if they're interested in that Fragments of Him game, we did talk about it a couple of weeks ago. It is a double stack, EU and NA, and as Reddy said, it's a really interesting game. Obviously, it's gay friendly or whatever in its thing, but it's not preaching. And for a game that was made in 2017, an American game, it's definitely a period of time that could have been preaching, particularly here in Australia too. It plays, as Reddy said, it's a very honest account. I don't think it would offend your sensibilities either side of your position on that issue, if you even have a position on that issue. And I think why it works is it's very honest. It is a walking sim, so be forewarned. Very, very easy walking sim, but it is a very honest story. And I think there is something for everyone in there. And it's I think, as you said, Reddy, it's just life. I think that's why it appeals to you. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like that if you found someone who was maliciously intolerant and made them play that game, they'd probably be in tears by the end of it. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's something like that. And it's like what you were saying. It's not preachy. It's just a very honest kind of story. I don't know, man. That was very interesting for me. So I appreciate that recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the next thing was Touch My Katamari, which we talked about this in the pre-show, but I'll just go through it again. It was the first Vita game I ever got. It's my only missing timestamp, so I could have had a really nice 6 or 7 year, timestamp on that, but instead it's, I've got this mark of shame. But that's cool. It was I bought it with my Vita, and I probably played it in the car or something, or at my girlfriend's place. I just, I wouldn't have been able to wait till I got home and set up the internet connection for this. So it's probably why I have the missing timestamp. I don't remember it, of course, but look, I looked at that and I went, you know what? I don't care. I've done Katamari forever. Why is this sitting there? It doesn't matter that it's not the best Katamari game. Any Katamari game is good, even the worst, even the PSP one, So yeah, but what doing that trophy list amounted to, because I had already had 50%, was I had to play through the whole game again because I let my friend play it and he erased my save. But thankfully that only took a couple of hours. And then what the trophies amounted to after the gameplay was over was you'd go into a little menu screen to look at your collection in the game, and then you'd go out to the date and time settings and advance the time forward by a day, go back, reap the benefits of the candies that you get, which you need to buy everything, which is the bulk of the trophy set, I guess. And yeah, you just do that for 200 or 300 times in a couple of hours while you're doing something else, hopefully, and that's the trophy list. It's horrible, mate. But Bandai Namco, yeah, they did some really kind of horrible things with their early Vita releases, I think, because I did Ridge Racer as well, and that was 3 tracks that you got if you didn't buy DLC and have fun with that. I got that. I actually got that platinum. It was actually very easy, believe it or not, because nobody was playing, so you could log in, get 1,000 free credits, which is an hour or two. So I just did that every day, and then eventually I did the 2 skill-based trophies, and I got that platinum. So that was nice.
I think that brings us to the summer lesson. Mindy's always interested in this genre of games, so I'm looking forward to hearing what your opinion is.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah.
No, I'm interested in your interest in these kind of games.
This is about Reddy. Yeah, let Reddy share.
It's nice of you to call it a game. It really isn't. It's 3 screens, I think. Yeah, not much of a story going on there. You get a phone call saying, "Oh, you got to tutor the student." Then you meet the student. These are the same things, every time you start the game, and then you have 7 days. You pick a lesson, and then you pick a chat topic or something like that, and you have to pick the right or the best teaching method. So if she's doing a what do you call it? Tower of Cards puzzle, then maybe you want to use a soft, relaxing aroma or play calming music. So you don't want to cheer loudly, for example, you know. And then if you do the best thing, sometimes you get some weird fan servicey thing. But look, for the first loop of this, I was a bit of a resistant reader, and I thought, is this actually like a grooming kind of thing? I was a bit sus on it, and I didn't feel too comfortable because she gets really close to your face. Her face gets so close to yours that it's just a bit. I had to move back a little bit, a few times, and the other reason I had to move back is because when she moves forward, sometimes the subtitles disappear inside the character model, and I just thought, oh, for real, I would actually like to read this, you know. I guess the first playthrough takes about an hour or something, and after that you can skip all of the dialogue that you've already seen. So subsequent playthroughs take 20 minutes, but for the 100%, I'm probably going to have to do about 40 loops or something like that, because there are these ridiculous trophies revolving around messing up the fan service bits, like dropping your fork. So yeah. I originally, I think, had bought, my first pervy games just because they were refused classification over here. No. The first one I bought was a Senran game, and I just thought, oh, that's a beat 'em up. I'll play that, right? And then I thought, oh, I'll play the next Senran game. I'll play the next one. And then they started banning them here. And like, I never would have bought Galgun Double Peace really because I thought the first one was trash, But then I saw it was banned, so I bought it. And then, I for some reason was on holiday and just decided to start it up. And then I was like, oh yeah, cool. And I ended up getting the platinum for that. And then I started developing kind of a collection of these skeezy titles. But, for me, I just sort of have always played them as kind of trophy trash. So it's kind of annoying for me when the gameplay is continuously interrupted by these cutscenes of, I'm doing this transforming, I'm stripping all my clothes off. Oh,
Well, I think in the game, in the experience's defense, I think that many people that buy these sort of things are actually looking for that. Don't you feel? I think that's the point of
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah. I have a collection of that, but I'm not particularly fond of what it is or anything. And when I think about the experience of a Senran Kagura game, it's usually mashing the button until you see a green circle, and then you press a button to go up in the air, and then you mash a button, the same button again, until you get another green circle, and then eventually you get a little scroll, and you strip your fucking clothes off, and then it's dumb. It's just repetitive dumb shit. And but I'm in too deep now, so I'm a little bit behind, but I've got most of those sorts of titles, and I always check them out. Just because it's part of a collection now, and I'm mildly obsessive about shit like that. But yeah, look, this summer lesson, it's kind of it's kind of a light life sim. It's the sort of thing that you would find as the gameplay element in a visual novel, except that's the entire game, and it's in VR. But I'm not sure that it needs to be. So look, I did have a couple of run throughs without the VR set on, just to see, because it is going to be a grind. But look, I'll probably get that 100%, and then I'll probably do the other two, because there's half the amount of content
Yeah.
in the other two as this main one. Yeah, but the other thing about that though is that they're normally what, 800 Hong Kong dollars, which is 200 Australian maybe, and I got them for what, 400 Hong Kong dollars for both of them in English with all the DLC. So if you are thinking about being the wrong kind of contrarian and picking up Summer Lesson, I'd advise you to get a Hong Kong account and wait for a sale, because they do go on sale fairly frequently.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And then there's just one other one on your list I was going to ask about, this Blasphemous. So this is a recent, this week, I believe, as of time of recording, listener. What's this like?
Well, I didn't really know much about the game, and then I saw a cutscene, which was ultra violent, and I thought, oh, cool, this is a bit like the, maybe 90s PC stuff. There was this, id Software, who made Doom and Wolfenstein, made these games, Dangerous Dave in the Haunted Mansion and Shadow Knights, I think it is, on the PC, and they were just these very gory side scrollers. And it just reminds me a little bit of something like that. But look, it's a Metroidvania, and it's the controls aren't quite as fluid as something like Symphony of the Night, but they're a little bit better maybe than Death's Gambit, which I've also done. And I had to restart the game 5 times because of a missable, or because of 3 different missables. And there was no information. I was playing completely blind. There was literally 0 information when I started playing this. But now I think I'm at a good point. I've got my save ready to actually make a bit more progress. But yeah, look, seriously, for me, not to knock out a Metroidvania in an afternoon is just kind of a bit of a shit, because usually when I get them, I start and it's usually quite annoying when you're underpowered initially, and then eventually you make more progress. And it's just a bit of an addiction, Once I start, I that compulsion usually stays there for me with that type of game. So I might see this one through to the end.
So ready, I have a
Yeah.
question for you. In 10 words or less.
Oh no.
How do you feel about Metroidvanias?
They're in my top 3 all-time favorite genre, and I've always loved them, and I've been there from the inception.
I said 10.
Sorry. Well, that was the answer, and then
well, she's going to bring the.
That was the answer, but then the bit afterwards was that wasn't part of the answer. We'll just go with that.
Was cheating, is what you're saying.
Yeah, why not?
The bit after was cheating.
An elaboration.
It's the debug menu of the conversation.
Yeah. That was very interesting. That was a very wide, eclectic range of games. So yeah, no, thank you for that. I enjoyed that. Very interesting.
Sorry, but seriously, this I also have Call of Duty on there, and I've been talking about all this obscure shit while I've been playing this old AAA title. Yeah, that's been very enjoyable as well. And I just shout out the Call of Duty crew and the Australian Warning Point League. I just find that doing that sometimes because I'm working on the multiplayer, it's been really good for me because I've been feeling a little toxic this week, and when I did the COD sessions, I felt a little bit better. I was getting a bit more back to an emotion neutral state, So yeah, I'll just mention that. I do regular games as well. I just usually try to keep it to 1 a year. I might do 2 or 3 this year, but yeah. All right, sorry, mate. Sorry to interrupt.
Not a problem. Excellent. Yeah, and look, it's great to see somebody still playing old Call of Duties in this modern age. So, Mindi, what have you been up to?
I honestly, I really haven't been playing much this week at all. So this will be rather short. I'm lying. I've played mostly Picross, but that's on my DS.
That's cool.
So,
that's cool.
Sometimes I get in these like what I call a Picross loop, where that's just all I play, and I'm currently in one, which is not good.
We talked about this a few weeks ago, though, didn't we? Where I said like sometimes I just feel too tired for certain games, and then you were like, sometimes you just feel comfortable playing certain games. So I think it's good. Like it's comfort for you, isn't it? So it's good. Yeah,
I guess. But all I've played this week is I played Paradox Soul. Because I used one of those trophies for a trophy event over on .org, and so then I cleaned it up. That is also a Metroidvania. And in the course, I hit 22,000 trophies. I didn't realize that.
Congratulations. I didn't realize that either.
Oh, good on me.
Yes, that's impressive.
What was my 22,000th trophy? It was called Exploding.
Did you plan for that, or that just naturally happened?
No, it just happened. And then the only other thing I've played this week is that Apocalipsis, the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil game, which I think I talked about last week in the new releases.
You did, yes, yeah, but you hadn't played it at this stage. At that stage.
Yeah, well, because it hadn't come out yet, but now it has. And it's yeah. It's all right.
You're really selling it.
So this is a PC game initially, and then they took the DLC and they stuck it into the main game. So it's one of those. It's a complete edition, I should say. It's all right. It's an interesting idea. I like the art style. I think I said this before, but it's very inspired by things like the Bayou Tapestry, like those kind of old kind of Grecian artworks. And the problem with this game, at least that I have, is that there's not enough story to it. Like you'll play several levels and then you'll have a little cutscene, and I feel like they needed more of that. Cuz there's no talking or anything in these levels that you're playing. There's no, even when there's people on screen with you, like they interact with each other with just action instead of any sort of words, or even just like a thought, a dialogue bubble with like a picture of whatever it is they want. So it's a little jarring to go from several screens of silence and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden you have a voiced and narrated very short cutscene of another, like it's awkward. But generally favorable opinion of this game. I like what they were trying to do with it. I just don't know if they succeeded in doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I mean, this is a point and click, isn't it? at nature. Is that how you
Yeah.
describe it? Or, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely a point and click.
definitely a point and click. Yeah, because I thought the art style was quite unique as well. Is it one of these point and clicks where therefore it's like highly missable things, or is it just sort of naturally as you play through the story you'll acquire most things?
If there was not no, nothing is missable for the sole reason that there is stage select, which is
Oh, okay.
unusual for a point and click.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, just about the entire list would be missable. But there's area select, so and you don't even have to wait to
Okay.
finish the game before you can do that. That's the interesting. You just have to finish whatever that area is, and then there's a map you can pull up and go right back to it.
Okay. And roughly how long is this experience?
Oh, I would say the base game before the DLC, a little under 2 hours, tack on maybe another hour with the DLC. So realistically, 4 to 5 hours.
Oh, perfect. Quite short. And should we be expecting a guide from you on this specimen?
Yeah, I'm finishing it up tonight. I've done the base game, and I'm about midway through the DLC by the
Excellent.
time we've recorded this. So after we're done recording, I'm gonna go back and finish it.
Oh, lovely. Good. Excellent. Would you like to throw any other comments out, or happy
It's a
to
double
move
stack. Looks like there's a,
on?
I'm gonna assume, European and North American stack.
Okay. I mean, this could almost be. Would you go as far as to class it as high class spam or just spam?
It's I wouldn't put it in the high class spam tier, but I would not call it spam either. So like
Oh,
middle
okay.
class
So
spam.
it's worthy of some kind.
It's definitely worth trying, and it's cheap. It's $5. You know, if you didn't know any better, you'd call it a rat game, but it's not a rat game. But the price point surprised me that it's just $5.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Cool. Excellent. And anything else?
No, like I said, that's literally all I've played this week.
That's good. Well, you're busy guide writing as well, so I can understand. And listeners, as you know, I'm definitely not busy guide writing because I don't, don't finish enough games to write a guide. I suppose would be the answer to that question. What can I throw out for you this week? Well, this week
Didn't you write a guide for cat cart racing, whatever that was called? Meow Motors?
I wrote an inferior guide for Meow Motors, yes, but I believe it's been superseded now by a more seasoned guide writer. Rightly so.
How about your Fear of Bugs trophy guide that doesn't tell you how to get the gold trophy?
Yes, well, that's because I can never. Well,
Yeah.
you know what I thought about that game
Yeah.
is that I realized 3/4 of the way through that it's totally random. I think
Oh,
a lot of the actions are random. So I sort of, I think I put that in the guide about halfway through. I was like, well, look, I'm not sure that this is going to help you at all.
well, I found. I feel like that guide's been superseded by a video I posted on the PSN
I'm
profile
sure it has
subforum.
been.
But look, I found a video of that, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you pick certain, if you look at the right things in the right order, you can almost always get that, that high score for the gold trophy. But in saying that, I don't think I did exactly what was done in the video either.
Mm,
Typical Japanese VR, not much of
yeah.
an experience, unfortunately.
The game, I can't remember. Was it called Fear of Bugs? Was that the actual name of
No,
it?
it was called Gocky's Room
Oh,
or
that's right.
something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, VR.
Yeah,
And I think at that stage it was only available on the Japanese store, but I'm not sure if it's come out on other stores now. I have a feeling I've seen it around the
yeah.
web. So yeah,
No, it has.
it's an escape room, bug, cockroach fear type game. Listener, if you're interested in that, but that's definitely from a previous life for me, so I won't be going back to that. But let's throw out some more modern things. So I'm persisting with Wreckfest here, listeners, and look, I really do enjoy this game. It's incredibly arcadey. I think the only problem I've had with it is perhaps the loading times. I understand they're still patching this game, and look, I understand it's from THQ, as well, so that there are things to consider and expect. But that's probably the only detraction from this game. It is really good, although there does seem to be they've relaxed the rubber banding hugely, but there does seem to be a couple of events where there is a bit of a spike in it. But look, overall, it is quite fun. It has this weird. I'm now at a junction because we've hit the online stage, which really tests my patience of whether it's worth it or not to complete the 20 races. But I understand, I understand it's all public lobbies as well. Although I imagine at this stage the game it's probably already pretty quiet. So if you were looking into that's possibly the only trophy you would have to boost, depending depending on the lobby sizes. I believe they fill with AI, but I believe those victories do not count if there's not a human player in the game. And then, look, I'm going to throw out this one as well, Greedfall. So, a lot of people know about this game. This is an old school style RPG. In fact, it's been quite anticipated game because a lot of players in this market, they put out fantastic trailers for these games, but then the games fall very short. But this one, I'm happy to report, it is a full price game. I'm happy to report that I don't think it falls short at all. I think this game is amazing, actually, if you like this style of game. For the listeners that are interested or have played these style of games, you'd expect to spend, 3 to 4 hours before you even get into the game, just sort of getting your head around systems and maybe, even getting into some sort of story. But this game, the systems are really straightforward. The combat is enjoyable, but not overly complex. But I don't think that will wear on you as you spend, your potentially 100 hours in this game. And the great thing is the story starts right at the beginning. There are tons of side quests that you can participate in if you like, and it plays in a way like a sort of a Skyrim system that if you progress too far, then certain side quests obviously fail. In the thing, one of the amazing things about this game is that it's all voiced. Every cutscene. So I'm in about 8 or 9 hours now. Every cutscene has been fully voiced. There is some lip syncing issues, so maybe you have to look to the side of the screen at times. But if you can get around that, or that doesn't bother you, it's fantastic. And the writing is really good. So look, I think this game, I know we've got the Outer Wilds coming up. We've got some really big games, that loosely in this genre as well. So you'll have to decide here where you want to spend your time. But look, it's good, and the trophy list is very good as well. At the moment there is no New Game Plus, so perhaps that will be added. Although there does seem to be some path deviations in the trophies, and also one requiring you to play it on extreme, which look, I think would be quite a challenge, depending on how you choose to level up. So look, I think that's good. Got a few spam titles, but we'll save those till the spam section. And then the only other thing, I know we talked about this, the Dark Pictures, the Man of Medan, but because no one else here is playing it at the moment, I'll just share a quick 1 minute that I started on the behest of a listener, or on the encouragement to try the creator mode, which I believe is only available at this stage if you pre-ordered. I believe it's also easier maybe to get the collectibles or something in this mode, but it actually plays the story from a different angle, which is really interesting, actually, especially, you can't play this mode till you finish the game in the base mode or whatever else. So it's an interesting spin on something that I didn't think I would come back to too soon. And then I believe a friend of the podcast here has we've set up a session to play the share play or something session on the weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. So maybe I'll see another angle. But look, for the value of this game, I think it's around 40 Australian. There is a ton of replayability here that I didn't see coming in or expect. So if you're on the fence on that game, I think I think it's maybe better than I thought in the previous weeks. So something to check out. But look, that's enough.
I want to point out I don't care about this game at all. Not Man of Medan.
Okay.
You also played a game called Hero Express. I don't want to know what the game's about. I don't care what the game's about. All I care about is that there's a trophy called Guybrush.
Oh, yes.
Which means it's a tribute to Monkey Island, which makes me very happy.
Yes, yeah. It's the pirate level, the Treasure Island level. The Guybrush trophy, yes. Yeah. Look, I was gonna throw that in the spam, but really quickly, listeners, only available on the NA store, I believe, at this stage, $5 or something. It's a time waster game for sure. It's one of I love these games where you as the more you play, the more the more coins you get, the more you can upgrade your vehicle, the easier the track becomes. It's impossible to pass the track on the first go because you just don't have enough power or jump or whatever. But as you play it a few times, you know it gets easier and easier. So if you like those sort of it's a 2D side-scrolling, the poor man's Trials, I suppose you could call it. In a way, it's fun, and each level will probably take you about half an hour because you'll probably replay it 15-ish times. But look, a playthrough can be as short as 30 seconds to, I think finishing the track is like 3 minutes. And the only other side of the trophies is upgrading your vehicle to 7 on each category for each track. So, it encourages you to replay it anyways for that. So look, I have a feeling looking at the other people playing that game at the moment, because there's not a lot, that there'll be a guide come up in the next few days. Perhaps it will be shared for everybody. That would be lovely. And then, you can make your decision on that. And then look, because no one else has, Reddy gave a bit of Xbox love in, and I almost forgot, but I started the Blair Witch on Xbox. If you own an Xbox, it's free on Game Pass. Hallelujah, Game Pass. Thank you, Sony. And it's fantastic. It's well worth your time jumping in and having a look. It's very different style of horror, obviously, to The Man of Medan, and it's tense. And, I hope it comes across to PlayStation, Mindi, because it does have some really good puzzle elements as well. It's not just a horror jump scare machine at all. So, yeah. But look, that's more than I intended to give listeners. So, I hope there's something in there for you as we push across to some new releases for this week. So, Mindi, would you like to start us off?
So I think we mentioned this before. I don't remember when it was. We talked about the Groundhog Day game, the VR one. When did we talk about that? But that's coming out.
I think it was last week.
Was it last week? And I just have a really awful memory. I think that's coming out this week, right?
It is, yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's VR. I'm assuming VR exclusive. It kind of looks like you'd be required to have your VR on, as opposed to some of these VR games where it's just kind of optional. I like the idea of this game. That it's Groundhog's Day. It resets stuff. I like the idea of this game, but I'm kind of surprised it's not a horror game. I think Groundhog's Day is a horror movie. I'm just putting that out there.
Now we debated this a little bit. I'm not quite in agreement with you, but I'm going to let it slide here.
It's kind of a higher concept horror.
Okay, that's a nice way. See, I don't get it. That's what you could have said. It's very, very subtle of you.
But it says, what does it say? Over 8 hours of hilarious puzzles and branching narrative gameplay with a story that challenges you to think past today and break a time loop cycle to escape into tomorrow.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see. And Reddy, do you have some stuff to throw out? New release?
Oh well, Bus Simulator was of some interest to me because I played this game called Tokyo Bus Guide on the PS2, and it's exactly what you'd think it was. You have to stop at the stops, you have to pick people up. There's a button to open the door. You have to indicate, if I remember correctly. It was full on with the simulator aspects. And this one I think is it's probably German made, isn't it? All those simulators are made in Germany, more or less. And I looked at a video of it. It looks very nice, you know what I mean? But you are driving on the right side of the road. You're driving on the left side of the Japanese, which is more what I'm accustomed to. So that might take a minute to get used to. But it's just that sort of thing. Like it's probably just going to be too much, and I probably won't buy it. But it was interesting. Like that driving essentials, that seemed interesting to me. I like that idea of a completely full blown sim type thing. That's definitely on my radar. Probably fall off it, but And then the other one I wanted to talk about was this Sayonara Wild Heights, because I looked at it and I thought, what is it's just going to be an RPG or something, surely? But no, it's this really really trippy, on rails deal. Looks like short, simple stages where you're going through and you're collecting hearts and some other things, and you're on a motorbike or a skateboard or whatever. And then there's these little battle type things that were just quick time events. And I don't know. It looks like the sort of thing that won't have a platinum, or it'll be really easy, or they'll make it super hard because, I did notice you've got bronze, silver, gold ranks, etc. So, knowing my luck, because I like it, it'll probably be an ultra hard 100% list I won't want to do, because that's what seems to happen a lot of the time. These indie games that I look at it, I think that's great. And, So anyway, I'm still disappointed you didn't mention Risk of Rain 2. I wanted to ask you about that, but at the same time,
Look, I'm gonna. No, that's okay. I'm gonna hold on to that one because I really haven't played enough of it yet. It's not my style of game. So every now and then, Reddy, I don't know if you know this about me, but every now and then I like to buy games, and so I just pursue the store, and I seem to be, as you know, I take after the great Ike, God rest his name, and he's inspired me in this journey, and I thought I saw him give it a go, and I thought, look, if I thought it was worthy of his time, maybe it is worthy of my time, and it's quite fun. But I need to put a bit more in. So we'll talk about that in the future or not as it comes in. That's good. That's good. So look.
You're probably talking about it.
Yeah. It's still on the X bar, so it has a high chance of crossbar. Sorry, it still has a high chance of being played at least once more. So look, I'm going to throw out Truck Driver because I'm on a roll here with racing games, and look, why not? So so if you still need another racing game, I don't know why you would. This week you can pick up the Truck Driver, and look, it's exactly as the name implies. You'll be driving trucks. So it's always interesting. I wonder how it will handle. I don't know. Look, I don't know. We had the FIA, the licensed European truck racer recently, and then the strange, double stack of the American of the same game where they obviously couldn't get the licensing, so they just called it the Truck Racing Championship. But now we have Truck Driver as well. So look, it completes the set, I suppose. So wonderful, just wonderful. Now, Mindi, I believe you had a little bit of news. Did you want to share with us?
Yeah, came out of nowhere.
Yes.
Deadly Premonition is getting a sequel.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Holy cow.
I was so happy with that too.
What? So I was happy until they said it's only coming onto the Switch.
Give it a couple of years. It'll come to the PS4. I'm fairly confident.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
know.
that sucks, isn't it? Did you think
know.
about buying a Switch? Because it made me want to.
I'm not gonna lie, it kind of did, but
there's a very good chance that'll come across.
It's been I think over a week since they announced, or like 4 days since it was announced, and I'm still just kind of, every time I think of it, I'm like, wait, what? Really? Deadly Premonition is getting a sequel. Like what?
That was my favorite game last generation, so I'm really happy with that too.
And it's actually a prequel game, so it's set in New Orleans in 2005. So it's actually a prequel to Deadly Premonition. And Francis York Morgan is in the trailer. They showed him skateboarding, which is pretty great.
Well, look, that links perfectly in, because we actually had a comment on the Platinum Club about now that Mindi should go back because of the sequel announcement and actually complete Deadly Premonition, the first one. So maybe this will be the impetus you need to push you to your goal here and complete that one.
Maybe I will. I also think the title's a little bit on the nose here. It's called Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise.
Yes, reeks of daytime television. Lovely. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say about that, Mindi? Or should we just put that straight on your backlog?
No, Deadly Premonition got a sequel. Like, that should be the biggest news story of ever.
It is. It's moved me in many ways. So
I'm genuinely excited.
I wish they would port the first one. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll remaster the first one so we can play it on modern console. That would be cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say, well, they did, and they called it Deadly Premonition Director's Cut, and it's on
yes, I mean, yeah, for PS4 would be nice, but maybe they'll do a package on.
It is. They did put it on the Switch, and I'm wondering if that's a remaster, if that's a straight port.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, the Switch is doing well. Again, it's doing well. Yeah. Yeah, but look, I'm sure it will probably come across at some point. Good. So look, why don't we shuffle into the topic? So listeners, last week we embraced this open flux of a topic where it just naturally just lived and breathed. It was very organic with the resident Darryl. So we're gonna try a similar method this time, I suppose. Now we're very lucky to have ready a real expert, a connoisseur of Japanese games, and he's going to talk a little bit about the process of importing some do's, don'ts. Maybe he'll give us some tips on some good games. I've seen photos of his collection. It is amazing. By by anyone's standard, it's amazing. But it's really something else. So he might even share a little bit about that. As well if he so wishes. But just to preface this, I know that many of our listeners perhaps don't delve into the the Asian stores too much, whether it be the Hong Kong, Korean, or Japanese, whether it be digital or through vendors such as Player Asia. And other providers, but there are some real gems there. So I encourage you, if you ever sat on the fence, or if you're a bit like, I don't want to play something like that, maybe just keep an open mind, have a listen, and look, I understand many of these games, as I'm sure Reddy will say, can be very expensive. It's not a cheap pursuit, but you can always find things around, and hopefully you'll get some ideas here. So having said all that, Reddy, do you want to kick us off in this adventure?
Yeah, I mean, that was such a kind way of describing my compulsive hoarding as far as that collection thing. I'm just still shocked by that. But look, as far as procuring these things, you just, a lot of people just go to Play Asia, and you're paying a 40% markup sometimes on those things. It's just outrageous. I mean, it should be your last resort if you're looking at upcoming, like if there's a import that that you actually know about already and that you want, you can go and pre-order it at Army or Amazon Japan, for quite a bit less, and you'll probably pay a little bit more for shipping, but you'll get that quickly, so it all works out. And what else? If you want something a bit cheaper, the Japanese ones, you can go on the just Amazon, not even the Japanese one, but the American one, and you go on the marketplace where people are selling that, and you can pick them up for about $50 a pop. That's what it was averaging to after shipping and conversion rates for me, to get these import Vita titles because I had a short list of ones that I wanted, and but I didn't want to pay $80 per one when I knew that they weren't worth $80 more or less. So that's what I recommend. I recommend checking out Army. That's AMIAMI.com. They've got they've got an English language website, and but you do have to pre-order stuff there. If you don't pre-order it, it'll probably sell out. They barely ever have leftover stock. But yeah, go to Army and Amazon Japan before you hit up Play Asia, because that shit's a joke. I used to be really a lot more physical orientated, but I'm just, all the cubes are filled up, shit's spilling out everywhere. So I've started doing a bit of digital deviance, and I've found with that so much just goes on sale, like those summer lessons. So except for the third stack of Deadly Premonition that I want to do, that's never going to be less than 4,000 yen. Yeah.
There's a third stack, or are you talking about Xbox and the 2 PS3 ones?
No, I'm talking about the Japanese version of the director's cut that's only on the Japanese store. It's 4,000 yen, and I don't think it's ever been on sale. So that's $70 for me to buy a 5,000 yen card to, get the third stack. And I've looked at it so many times, I just thought, I want to do that so badly. I mean, I paid $80 for Red Seed's profile, which was worse than the director's cut. It had a worse frame rate, worse sound. It was harder.
It's the broken one.
I played it on normal. I didn't even play it on easy. I didn't have to play it on normal. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
For people who don't know, Red Seed's profile is the name of Deadly Premonition in Japan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so
okay.
that's and so you're looking for the one called Deadly Premonition, but it is in the Japanese store. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question just before we go down this track? So you mentioned that a lot of these you have to pre-order. So a lot of the physical versions, are these sort of limited, like run, are they, or in that they sell out, or?
Well, it's just that site. Look, I mean, I've heard people who have horror stories from ordering figurines from this site. So, but for me, I've always ordered games from there, army.com. I'm not trying to shill it here. You're actually going to save some money if you use the shop. But you do have to pretty much pre-order most of what you want, because a lot of the time they just don't have much stock for the foreigners, If you go to the Japanese store, they probably have the stock, but yeah. And there's this one I forgot to mention called Nin Nin Game. If you're in Europe, I think you can get it without paying tax. Or they'll mark it down, or they do something for you. But from my experience, it takes months to get what you want, and it is often the cheapest, but you'll just be waiting forever. And I swear this guy lists the games that are available at it's probably someone who lives in Japan and just literally walks down the road and gets your order. That's the way it sort of seemed to me that it was set up. It didn't seem to me like he actually had any stock.
Yeah.
It was very dodgy, but it worked out every time I've done it, and I got some really good bargains from them.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Now, just before we move off the the procuring of these games, as you say, so this is obviously would be dependent on your country, listener. So this is more a personal question for me, because I'm predominantly a digital buyer, but this always interests me. Do you have any problem with some of these games? Because some of these games are either not rated in Australia, or they are technically, banned to a degree, I suppose, if they're not. Have you ever had any problem with customs getting any of these games in, or?
The only time that customs ever opened up something of mine was the Japanese version of Time Crisis 4, the trophyless version, and I wanted that because I wanted a black GunCon 4, not an orange one.
Mm-hmm.
And customs did open it up, and it delayed the package by only a single day. So that's the full extent of it. And I ordered Mortal Kombat. Look, it's not just pervy bullshit. I ordered Mortal Kombat when it was banned. I'm very interested in banned games overall, to the extent that I watched a long play of Harvester, which was banned here in the 90s. And I was blown away by that. That was actually brilliant. But then I thought, man, if I'd have played this would have been one of my favorite. What is it? It's a point and click. Yeah.
Was it because of the baby's eyes, or what?
What's that? I have no idea. I just have no. It was funny to me. When you go to the lodge and the guy's like, "Tonight the big sale commences." It's just super cheesy. He's telling you to play pranks on people, and then he tells you to burn the bloody diner down. I don't know.
What was this? I referenced Harvester a couple of weeks ago, didn't I?
You did. You know, like ever since you've been on the show, there's like something good for me every week. I should thank you for that. Like you're always bringing up something interesting, and like it doesn't matter if you know, like I sat there listening for an hour and I go, oh well, I'm not really that fussed on the game. You always bring up something good, like Deadly Premonition, Katamari, all that good stuff. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
How about Mega Man?
You know, someone out there appreciates it.
At this point, listeners, I should announce my retirement, and Mindi will be taking over to provide more exciting content for you. I like it. Yeah, no, that's good. See, the problem here, Mindi.
No, but you'll notice I snuck in Mega Man there. So for another week,
you did.
We've talked Metroidvanias and Mega Mans.
Well, like, no, well, we haven't talked Mega Man, have we? But, you know, I played that later on in life with the PS2 collection because originally I had this thing where I thought it was a run and gun. And I said, why can't he duck? That's kind of ridiculous. But no, look, I played it and it was very playable. And, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of that tweaked out AI where the enemies just bounce up and down that you get in the 8-bit days. I really don't like that. But apart from that, it's really good. I enjoy the disappearing platform sections and all the other stuff. It's a fun challenge, you know. They're good games, so
No, sorry, you lost me at enjoying the disappearing platform sections. Moving on.
yeah, no, I did. I liked them, yeah. Because when they reprised them in Guacamelee, you know, I was like, oh, Mega Man tribute, nice. And I was sweet doing that. And my mate came around and said, how do you deal with this? I'm like, dude, I played Mega Man. This is easy, you know? Good stuff. It's good stuff, yeah. So, yeah, you know, it's not my most favorite game series or anything, but I do like Mega Man.
Excellent. The Mega Man minute has been observed.
Sorry, we did have to cover that, didn't we? My favorite.
Yeah, it really. I knew that. I warned Mindi.
Yeah. Even if we did have to split it up, even if I did have a preemptive talk about Captain Comic.
Okay, so now we've got these games. Now before we go on, you don't speak Japanese, do you?
Oh, not a word, eh? I know a little bit of those, you know, cliched anime words that a real Japanese person would just cringe until their head recedes into their body if they heard me say it, you know? But I really don't. I can read, save, and load, and that's it. That's absolutely it.
So what's the attraction of these games for you?
Oh, well, look, I mean, it just initially, right, it was just getting 2D stuff, which is obviously incredibly import friendly and, you know, no drama at all. But because, you know, this is PS2 days, you know, when I had a mod chip, you know, because it opened it up to me, I looked at everything else. And eventually I just started looking into, you know, the weirder stuff. Anything that looks a little bit surreal or whatever. But I found, you know, even with the 3D games, like if you were playing an action adventure, you know, maybe like a bit more action orientated. I mean, for generations now, they've had things like a little map with, you know, colored markers that tell you where to go. And they had that, you know, the little radar that you get in Grand Theft Auto or whatever. They have that in a lot of Japanese games. But I mean, shit like, say, Fatal Frame 3, I imported that. Project Zero, known here, is a horror game. I imported that, and what it amounted to was just a lot of wasted hours of just running around doing trial and error sort of stuff. But I kind of enjoyed that in a way, you know. It's just a complete discovery, you know. No information. You're just going in blind. You're just having an experience. Because I do like playing a lot of games without a guide. I quite enjoy that because it's just pure. And if I have a guide, I'm thinking about all this other stuff before I've even gotten into the game. So it's just And it was like that. It's just a very kind of free sort of thing. You know what I mean? I'm not articulating this well at all.
No, that makes sense. So on that so it's a lot of trial and error. No, I can understand that because the information, you know, can be difficult to find. So do you ever get, like, I mean, I'm sure you obviously do, but have you ever got stumped by one of these games where you just can't progress?
Yes. The Yakuza series. I've been playing them since the very first one came out in Japan, and I bloody imported it. And I thought, yes, Sega, this is going to be great. And I couldn't get past the bit where it's kind of convoluted. You have to talk to this person, talk to that person, find an item in a bin, go inside, go outside. I couldn't get into this funeral thing, so I couldn't advance past a couple of hours through the game, you know. And I later on picked it up when it came out in English, and you know, so that does happen. That has happened before. But the thing is, right, nowadays, if that happened to me, there's a lot more There's a lot more resources out there. You know, I could just search it up, and I'd probably find that info. But I don't feel like when I was starting to do it, there was as much info, or I didn't know how to find it. You know, because I guess look, that info would have been out there in Japanese, but it's actually taken me like an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure out what to search for in Japanese, because if you do search for it in the language, then of course you're going to get results. If you just type the thing in English
Yeah.
in Romanji, you're not going to get shit, you know. So if you're looking to do a trophy list in Japanese, what you should do is highlight the name of the trophy you want in Japanese and just search for that. You know what I mean? And then if you find something, it's usually a wiki. It's like a lot of the times you find that Dengeki Famicom wiki or some shit like that. You know, a lot of the time you can find that. Sometimes you'll find it. It'll just be a listing. There'll be no info. It'll always link to this thing that says difficulty reference or something, and sometimes you can find someone's experience, which does help. And other times you'll just find someone's blog where they've just talked about games they play, and you'll find the information there. But searching the name of the trophy name, searching the trophy name, the Japanese trophy name, is probably the best thing, the best resource that I've bloody found. Really, that's all you need to do now.
So you've probably just answered this. My question was, there used to be people like Drew Wario, like who had this whole show about how to play import games when you don't speak the language.
Oh,
And I it
yeah,
sounds
now I remember
yeah,
that.
it sounds like
Yeah.
no one really does that anymore, do they?
No, and you know, for a minute or two, I had a capture card, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to do YouTube videos? And actually, Drew Wario did a one on Chain Dive, I believe, which is a first-party PS2 game that never came out of Japan. And I mean, this game is kind of infuriating if I think about it. I went to record an entire playthrough, and when I was doing it, I thought, oh, I remember this annoying stage, remember that annoying stage. The game had a very solid foundation for you know, the gameplay loop and everything, but they constantly changed it and they added in all these extra things that just didn't really work and they stuffed you around, blah, blah, blah. But I think about it fondly because the music was that good and there's never been an official soundtrack release, and I would pay like $50 for the soundtrack. I'd pay like $60 if it was on vinyl, you know what I mean? And so I have a Sony mini disc player, right? Or recorder, and I tried to record the music from that game to my mini disc with an optical cable, and it said it was copyright protected. And I went, wow, I own this game, and they don't want to release the soundtrack. But yeah, no, look, yeah, no, I do, yeah, I remember, I actually remember that guy's videos about the, you know, can you import it? And he also he covered a bunch of stuff actually, and that was really good. And yeah, you're right, I don't really see people doing that anymore. You know, oh yeah, no, wait, there is one guy. There's this Australian bloke called Blue Maxima. He always rubbishes the games. He always has videos to demonstrate how incompetent he is at analyzing games and figuring out the gameplay loop. He's absolute trash, mate, and he is the person responsible for the videos of all these Vita games, and I just think that is a great shame. But thankfully, you know, he's so unpopular that no one really knows, so, you know, the damage can't be done. But at the same time, I've got a much higher tolerance for just complete bullshit and jank. So maybe
Yeah.
he's actually telling the
That's
truth.
interesting. Now, no, that's okay. Now, so I understand, and again, you know, I'm talking from my perspective, listeners here in Australia. I understand there's a bit of a very small underground, you know, VN, you know, community in Australia, but a lot of these games you're playing, they're not VNs, are they? They're
Oh, no, my criteria is not a VN, not an RPG. It can't be those things, you know what I mean? Because that's just that. What am I going to get out of that? And I said the thing about RPGs, but I did play Namco Cross Capcom on PS2 and finish it, which took 80 hours, and you know that was fine because it was a strategy RPG, and you know I just got to know the menus pretty quickly, and you know it was no issue. It was so competitive. All I wanted to do was see different sprites for my favorite Capcom
yeah,
characters,
that's
you know.
cool. Yeah. So what about? Can you
Yeah.
recommend some of these hidden gems, like you know, that we wouldn't know? Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I've I've got a short list. So I guess we're going to the good stuff section. The first one I want to talk about is Aquanaut's Holiday, and this isn't a stealth brag, right? Because there's an Asian English version
Oh,
of this
I own
game.
that game.
You do? Do you own the English
On
version?
yeah.
Oh, score, right? I got it for $40 when it came out, and I was like, well, why is this $200 now? You know? But
Oh, it's expensive. Like the
yeah,
proper the one that's actually in
yeah,
English, it's
it's
expensive.
so expensive, isn't it? And you know,
I'm gonna make a word I can't remember, an exception for it. That you know, my PS3 I decided a while ago,
yeah,
like my backlog will consist of stuff that's already on my card. But I really liked Africa. And so I'm like, wait, there's a game that's Africa underwater. Of course I want to play this. And I haven't
I should have known. Yeah, no, I should have known that you'd know that and bring that up. There you go. There's the good stuff you brought up for the week. I loved Africa too. It was so tranquil, wasn't it? I got up at 6 in the morning and played that sober to finish off the plat. Like getting up as the sun rising while it's rising in the game. It just kind of, it was beautiful. I'd kill for something like. I just want to play more of this animal cataloging stuff. You know what I mean? It's such a good subgenre that's just so criminally sort of overlooked. But anyway, yeah. So I want to say Aquanaut's Holiday. Now, I actually think this might be playable in Japanese. If you don't want to spend $300, you could get the Japanese version for $70. And I mean, you do miss out on like a little bit of a story, of some buried treasure and everything like that. But the gameplay loop is just floating around, cataloging things. There's a little thing with some meme trees. It's a bit convoluted. There's something that's completely convoluted where depending on what time or what day you dive or something, there are different planets revolving around this volcano, and you have to find all of those. And then there are these memory games that you have to play with the fish, and you level up to about level 20, so you have to play, I don't know, hundreds of those. But it's fine, there was no info when I did that, so it took me 7 years because I played it, beat it, stopped, played a bit more with, some Japanese language info, which was a nightmare, and then when I went back to it, there was English language info. So, you could I think there's enough information for anyone to do that, and it's a really good cult title that I'd recommend. So that's PS3. Moving on to Vita. I just want to check out this Hidebo Tap Dance Hero. I think this is a free PS Plus game in Japan, but I don't think it's like valuable or anything. You should be able to get a secondhand copy quite cheap. And that's a touch rhythm game that gets quite tricky later on. And I thought I'd be great at it because I was really very good at UBeat Plus on the iPad. But on the smaller screen when you have to make these zigzags and stuff, yeah, it gets really tricky. But the music's really good, and you can get half of the trophy list quite easily. And if you really want to work for it, you could get an ultra rare platinum if you're into that sort of thing. And then moving on, I've got this City Shrouded in Shadow, or Kyo Toshi, which is sort of giant robots and Godzilla and that kind of thing fighting while you're playing as a person stuck in the middle of all of it. That was made by by Grand Zeller, who formed after it formed from ex-IREM staff, and I've always really liked the Disaster Report series. It's called Disaster Report and Raw Danger in the States, and then I don't know what over here. It's called something else in Japan again. So that's kind of hard to talk about, but that series is basically it's kind of a non-violent, mature story or narrative, I should say, about just being stuck in a disaster zone and having to get out of it. And like, yeah, I mean, one of the PS2 games had a boss fight where you had to fight a helicopter with a fire hose, and that was the most action intensive it got. But this one is more of focusing more on the narrative. And I took a week to do that, but you could get that platinum in 4 hours. But I mean, there's a game-long missable where you have to trade items with the right people, the right time, and pick the right dialogue options so that the item that you acquire becomes more and more valuable until you have more cash than you'd ever need. So I was very conscious of that, and then I found out later that like I had actually done more than I needed to for that trophy. I actually didn't need to finish off the bloody, the scavenger hunt bloody side quest, but I did it anyway. But yeah, that game was fantastic, and it was so import unfriendly, but I managed to get it done just through the wiki and the little translate app on my phone. Yeah, I'd recommend that. And if you just want to get some trophies, should we move on to that? That's the good stuff. I'll just keep it to that, maybe. Or maybe also Puyo Puyo Tetris. This is both. I think it's a really good game. You can stack it 5 times, and now that it's out digitally, it's going to go on sale. You'll be able to like maybe get all 5 versions for $100 or something eventually if you just wait. And it's an easy platinum. You can rubber band your controller to do the grind. I don't know about the online. I always did that legit. I just picked Big Bang Tetris, and I'm pretty good at that. And I also want to throw out those M2 Shot Triggers games. You get a very good quality port of an old arcade shoot 'em up. You got save states to trivialize the trophy list. You'll end up with like a nice uncommon plat after a certain amount of hours, but they're very expensive. But I don't care with shoot 'em ups. I spare no expense. What, we still talking about good stuff, or are we moving on to...
Yeah, if you have a couple more good ones, feel free to throw them out. Or we can move on if you prefer.
No, look, I wanted to talk about a few weird ones. That's all. Like the experience. Yeah. There's this game, Yuki Yuna is a Hero, I think is what it translates to. It's incredibly shoddy beat 'em up, like incredibly bad. The first character that I chose was one with a huge broadsword, and I thought, the character movement was horrible. And I later found out that was deliberate because when you pick the characters with a smaller sword, they're lighter and they move around better. And I thought, well, nothing about this is realistic. Why did you add realism to make the game worse? But there's a character in a wheelchair, and she can't move. If you press up, like if you pick her and you move up, you just press up on the D-pad, nothing happens. You have to kind of hold R and do this dodge move, and she shuffles forward. And I thought, wow, that is just like, moving a wheelchair along. But the wheelchair isn't on her sprite in the bloody game. And it was just so bizarre. And I thought the game was absolutely horrible, but there were moments where it looked like, a little nod to bullet hell shooters. There were these 3D bullets and in a pattern, and I'm a fiend for shit like that, eh? So that was enough. That and two of the songs were really good, and there was a sound test. So I was actually able to record these, to a WAV file, which is just fantastic, So the music carried that game, in my opinion. So yeah, that was a weird one. I want to talk about Cross Ange and Gun Pixies, because these were done by Shade, who, I previously talked about Assault Gunners for a minute. But Shade don't know how to program system saving data. So these games, like Cross Ange is half a visual novel, half a slow mech game. And, Gun Pixies is some weird fan servicey shit. And in both instances, you just constantly, to get those platinums, because I have those platinums, you have to play the game so many times, like an unnecessary amount of times, because you can't make strategic saves and save any time. You just, every time it's a playthrough, and you'll have to do another playthrough, and it's just ridiculous. But what's interesting to me is that Shade used to be a Quintet subsidiary or something like that. So Quintet, who made Terranigma, ActRaiser, and all the good, I think they're the best RPGs on the Super NES myself, especially Terranigma. But they became Shade or something like that. And now what's left of Shade is like, I think, I wonder if there's anyone from Quintet, but I find it really interesting and a real fall from grace that, once upon a time there was a company who made the best RPGs on the Super NES, and now you have I guess you could call it the, same company more or less, and they're making, bad mech games and anime titty bullshit. And I just thought, what a fall from grace. Because I just really wondered about this Shade company for a time. And when I looked it up, I was kind of shocked. But anyway.
Are you sure that's Quintet that's still
Yep.
making? Because they haven't done anything since like the early 2000s.
Well, it's more that Quintet. Quintet doesn't really exist now, does it? It's Shade, and I mean Shade was their sub company or something, wasn't it? So it was. I kind of wonder if anyone from Quintet is involved, but just that Quintet relation, to this Shade stuff just did my head in. I just thought, how could they go from that to this? Because their Vita games really are quite bad, and I've got a full collection of them. I thought, oh well, I've got a few, I'll start. But shit like that Bullet Girls is almost unplayable. It's so bad. It's on my list at 4%, and like I load it up at once in a while, and I just think this is terrible, mate.
Yeah, and then you were going to move into some trophy games, did you say?
Cito, you don't have the Love Live School Idol the Love Live School Idol Paradise set, do you? I don't think you have those.
Probably not. No.
It's the rhythm. Oh, I guess
Yes.
I guess it is. Yeah, I mean, they're rhythm games, right? And there's 3 of them, and they have pretty much the same content, except for a few, maybe 5 different songs per volume, or something super stingy like that, right? And they were so expensive when they came out, but I waited, and I got them for $20 a pop. So you play one, it takes about 10 hours, you get that platinum, then your shit transfers to the other versions, and you get those platinums in about 4 hours or something like that. And all you have to do all you have to do is play a rhythm game. I mean, it's perfect, right? 3 platinums. All you have to do is a bit of rhythm game. So I was kind of surprised you didn't have those. I think you got most everything else.
No.
Your Mikus and.
Well, yeah. So Sony still gets a few things by me. So yes, but yeah, no, that's an interesting. Yeah. Do you have more recommendations?
Oh, for sure. What, for trophy trash? Yeah.
Well, if you like, it seems like that's where you're heading. So low be it me to pull the rug out at this point.
The other thing was Phantom Breaker Extra, right, which was on the 360 and originally, just never left Japan. And then they did that was the original Phantom Breaker, and then they did Phantom Breaker Extra on the PS3. And it's this fighting game where a special move is done by just pressing forward and the special button, or up and the special button. There's none of the complex controls, so it's completely trivial to do the single player. And then you've just got to put up with some bad netcode. And that was I think that might have been the first game where I found somebody to boost with, and I went and boosted it. But it's probably the easiest fighting game plat around, or maybe there are easier ones since. But that was going to be released in the United States, and that version never came out, so it's still a Japanese exclusive. And also you could do you could do this Dark Awake game, which is also a fighting game, just PS3. If you have your shit together, you probably have two PS3s, so you can just self boost that. And the single player is pretty easy. But the amusing thing about that one is when you look at the trophy list, it just says gold, silver, and bronze, not bronze, bronze. And that's the trophy list. No descriptions, just gold, silver, and bronze. Because something happened when
I remember seeing this.
yeah. So I did that. I did that in 6 hours or something. I just sat down and did it one day. That's obviously not for everybody. What else? I want to go into a couple of things just to avoid this Hello Kitty block crash on the Vita. All right. It might look fun. You might think, yeah, I liked Breakout. I'll enjoy this too. And it's a 50% plat, so you might think you'll get it quite easily. But the reality of it is that you'll probably spend about 4 to 10 hours just retrying these stages and dealing with the complete bullshit they throw at you. Like some of the stages, if it was just a brick breaking game, it would be fine. But they make you use, touch controls, and there's some levels are blacked out, and you have to use the back touchpad to light them up to see what you're doing. And the turtle boss at the end must have taken me 200 goes, So I absolutely will always try to discourage people from playing that. And then this other one I've got is Natswiro High School. I thought, ha, you can slide along and take photos while you're lying on your back. But the reality is that that game is just, the game system is so convoluted that God, I'm saying this word a lot, aren't I? But it really is. It's the least intuitive game I've ever played, maybe. And I thought if this was in English, I would still need a guide. You know what I mean? And there is a full Japanese guide out there, but I looked at that and I just thought, nah. And following on from that, there's this Happy Manager game. Now, this is a PS4 import that I haven't picked up yet, and I almost bought it because when it goes on sale, if you buy a month's worth of PS Plus, you'll be able to buy it for the plus sale price for cheaper than, the normal sale price. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I almost did that, and then I looked it up. It's an ultra rare platinum, and you're just going to spend about 100 hours, just looping the game endlessly. And even the Japanese players had said that the flags were difficult to figure out. So, the information there might not be concrete. And I looked at that, and I just went, yeah, nah. And the last thing I want to tell people to avoid is Kaiji VR. Now, this, I have the vibration turned off on my controller normally, and I had to put it back on for this, so that wasn't a good start. But it just is, it's agony. It lives up to its name, the Nightmare Bridge. It is a nightmare. And this one trophy, towards the end, will just bug out on you constantly, where you're supposed to look at this guy, while he's going, and then he, eventually decides to do the right thing and just jump off. Yeah, that was a horrible experience. I just, there's a stack of that, and I know I could do it, but it'll take a desperate day for me to revisit that, So if you're looking for a weird VR thing, I would rather recommend, I would say get Kowloon's Gate, which is maybe a 4-hour walking simulator where you just take pictures. It looks and sounds quite interesting. If you go on the Hong Kong store, you can get it for a good price. You can get it for about $15. But on the Japanese store, even when it goes on sale, it'll cost you like $40-50, which is right now, it's on sale right now. And I just went and looked, and yeah, it's exactly the same situation as when I bought it. I just went, oh wow, half price in the Hong Kong store. Let's do that. And it's in English as well, so I would recommend that. But it's one of the games that is said to make people the most motion sick. And I mean, I really don't get motion sick. I can go hard on VR all day long. Unlike you guys at the top. You remember? You had RD and Bloody Unknown was there, and none of you could handle VR. And I went, geez, guys, this is a bit ironic.
It's fun. It's funny you mentioned that because I literally just wrote that down, and then you said it's in English. I underlined it, and then you said it makes you the sick or whatever, and then I crossed it out. So I've got all 3 marks there.
Well, it doesn't have to make you sick. I turned all of the comfort options off. That's what I do. If I ever have a VR game with comfort options, I turn all of them off immediately. But there are comfort options there so that you don't get sick. But I realized why, because the scrolling is a little bit jerky, and yeah, the movement does feel a bit weird. Because I lived up north in that small town. I mean, that's what you'd go out onto the ocean. So I'm pretty comfortable on a variety of sea vessels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's very game dependent with VR too. What makes one person sick in one game may not make the other person, and the games are very very dependent. Yeah, across the range. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll go out of my way to play those ones that will supposedly make you sick. Like Drunken Bar
Mm.
Fight, for example. And I went, oh really?
Yeah, see, I
This?
didn't find a
Come
problem
on,
with
guys.
that either. So yeah, it was really dependent. So I was going to
Yeah,
see, we're sort of coming to the end of this. I was going to ask you then two questions I had. So it's
yeah,
great to hear anyone that's passionate talk about something, and this is a niche thing, definitely, listeners. Like we fully understand that as well. But it's really interesting to have someone who's so invested in it to tell us about it. So with that in mind, like I'll play anything and everything, as people know. But one of my hesitations with some of these games is trying to get a foothold into them. So do you, and for your knowledge, and I know you've done a little bit of this, but are you interested in sort of guide writing and easing that path for others, or do you find like yourself like the challenge is more enjoyable? You don't want to make it too easy for them.
actually, yeah. Well, look, yeah. I mean, I call myself an occultualist, which is a combination word of occult and altruism, and I'm very interested in what's hidden, what's unknown, and the altruism part of it should really, translate into some guide writing. So, but I'll get through the list and then I won't remember one thing. You know what I mean? I won't remember one thing. So I can do a 99 or 98% guide or something, but it depends where I'm publishing them because the first guide I ever wrote was one you asked me to do. So it had 100% my kind of language, and I chucked in a silly joke story that I thought you might like. And the second one, and that was only available on request. And I do say you can get this from me, but I would have to modify that so heavily to publish that, on PSNP or
Yeah,
wherever
yeah,
else,
I understand
and
that.
yeah. And the second one that I did for Gun Pixies, I thought I should write a guide so that people don't play this, so that
A
they know
warning
that it's
guide.
horrible. Um,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, I've offered that to anyone who's interested. No one's ever taken me up on the offer, but I read it, I reread it, and yeah, it was funny and it had creative language. So now we can come to the guide that I actually wrote. I chucked a ton of good stuff in that, and like almost all of it got edited out. You know what I mean, for my Medusa and her lover trophy guide. So that was a little disappointing, but I should just be more more clever than crass maybe in the future. Perhaps I just didn't mask the jokes well enough.
I actually wanted to ask you if that game, because I have had my eye on the game. Is it worth playing?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a VR game though, so you you probably need
It
that.
is, isn't it?
But look, I mean it wasn't. I was very interested in it because I really like the art house film The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, which is
That is a good one.
yeah, it's fantastic, right? I just love it so much. And when I saw it, the game was actually called Medusa and Man, and then they changed it to Medusa and Her Lover, and I thought, oh, okay, I like that. I kind of like the new title a bit better, to be honest. Yeah, so that's that's the that's the one impulse that led me to wanting to play the game. I just like the film and the Her Lover part, and I thought, oh, that movie. And then when I actually looked at it, I thought, oh, this looks so dodgy, but I'm gonna do it. And then when I played it. I played the single player for a minute where you control both characters at the same time, and if with two analog sticks. And if one character's far away from the other, and you stop moving with that character, it'll go to their viewpoint, and it's just so confusing. It's really confusing, initially. And I just went and I begged my girlfriend to play it with me, and we did almost all of it together, and it was fantastic. So I just think I thought it was an incredible co-op game experience for me to do that because we bicker when I got her to help me out with say Streets of Rage for the one credit, I had two PS3s set up, both online, and I got her to play with me, offline, online. We argued a bit because she thought it was funny to come up and give me a few whacks. And I'm like, no, we got to do it with no continues. And I had to pause and say stuff. But for this, we were just playing and enjoying it, and a bit like that Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time. It was a similar kind of thing, and I really think that's pretty valuable to have a co-op experience that I can do with my partner without arguing with her because it's just that's what happens most of the time, and I like that. I think it's cool that this is a game where if you do go for co-op, you don't need anyone who's like really good at games or anything. You can just get through it together. It'll just be a nice time. But it's really hard. It's really hard to say if that's worth it or not. But I think it's an easy platinum, and I think I gave you all the info. But hey, I'm just sorry with the guides, right? I've actually got one of them filled out for Bud Spencer and Terence Hill's Slaps and Beans, which I completely recommend to people. Like that's a brilliant game. But I think I just haven't put the tags in there or something like that. So I got it. I wrote the whole thing, and then I've just been procrastinating for weeks and weeks because I haven't written any tags or put any jokes in there or anything like that. So, I mean, I can sit down and write the boring factual stuff, but I really prefer not to. I prefer to, do creative writing, and I can't really do that with the guides and publishing it on that site in particular. So I don't know, man. I just, I do the Libran thing of, umming and ahhing about it endlessly. But the other thing I've done is a RIM 9000 trophy guide, which is a 2D shoot 'em up. It's not a bullet hell; it's more of a puzzle type thing, in my opinion, where the waves are coming, you've got to shoot them in a certain way with your positioning. And I actually recorded videos of almost every trophy for that. And once again, I've been procrastinating to upload stuff, and I don't want to merge my Google account. I do have some guides coming up, but with the Japanese ones, yeah, I do often think I should do that. But what I end up doing half the time is just going and making a big post on the sub forum on PSNP, and that usually people just don't read that then, and they ask me the questions that they could have answered themselves if they'd have read my original post. And then I'll politely go in and I'll just give them the information again.
Yeah, so listeners, there you go. Like that look, Reddy is very approachable. He's obviously a stream of consciousness type dude. So go in prepared. But look, I enjoy that sort of thing anyway. And look, his knowledge, it's clearly there. And it's just, we've talked about this. We talked about this with Chernobyl Ninja a couple of weeks ago. Daryl asked even last week about getting into some of these VNs or other games in this outside of the English regions. And there really is something here. Whether you go in as deep as Reddy, or you just go in because you finished the English stack and you want to play it again, or just something something different. These games are different. There is randomness in there, which we talked about as well. And it's sometimes I think you just get bored of Western art forms in whatever means. They become very generic. So it's nice to experience something different. So I do thank you, Reddy, for it was definitely a learning experience for me there. It was fantastic, and I'm sure we've only just touched on the topic, but that gives us something to definitely to dwell on. So look, with that, we sort of we did throw in, I suppose, some Japanese spam as well. Why don't we move across to the spam, the English spam, if you like? And Mindi, I know you'll come back and join us here. Shall we see if we can find some spam for people this week?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to bring up Apocalypsis again. It's going to be short.
I'm going to throw out, I'll just throw out like 4 very quickly in a row. If you like, the Perplexing Orb, again, only available on the NA store at the moment, perhaps on the EU at a later stage. So just the ones that quite cheap, and it's quite fun. I suppose a physics platformer, you could sort of say. But look, it's not difficult. You're just rolling a ball down, various paths and things like that. And look, it take maybe about an hour or so. No guide required. It's just a matter of going through. And if you do need to collect these little, they're like little crates, I think, through the levels. But if you don't get enough at the end, it's no major drama because one of the last levels has a stack. So you can just do it there. Jigsaw Zen, which I believe there's a guide for, again, not really needed. The game can hold your hand completely if you want by showing you where the pieces go or not. Again, another very quick plat where you only need to do 25 pieces. You can tell what I've been doing this week, listeners, can't you? And then Gabuchi. I'll throw this out there because, again, I think this game went under the radar. It's only a 100% game. You only need to complete about half the puzzles per level. So there's 8 to 12 puzzles on a level. You need to do 4 to sort of 6 of them. And if they're only too difficult, you can actually skip over them and do one of the others. That will count. And it's kind of fun. You play as a little, I don't know, like a little Pac-Man almost. And you can change between white and red. And there are blocks. And so obviously if you're white, you eat the white blocks. If you're red, you eat the red blocks. And you have to sort of traverse the level, leaving enough blocks to get through. So I would recommend that game. Again, quite cheap. It is a double stack, but perhaps you would only do that once. And then the rat offering of the week, Distraint, the deluxe edition. I don't know, Mindi, do you know anything about this game? It's obviously an older game that's...
No, I was going to ask you during the what have you been playing, but then I figured you'll probably talk about during spam.
Yeah.
So I do want to know what this is about.
Yeah, well, it is definitely spam. It comes in at an hour or just over. So a rat special, if you like. Look, this is a weird one. It's very, very dark. I mean, the ending incredibly dark. It bases itself on the premise of regrets. So obviously, this, if you're skipping and you're not going to read the text, this doesn't worry you in any way. But look, I thought the game became a bit of a regret, to be honest. I don't think it really, I can see where it was going, and it would be interesting, Mindi, after you've played it, to talk to you, because maybe there's more depth there than I thought. But it brings up a lot of issues, but then it backs away a little bit, and I don't know. It's almost like you should regret everything. I think that was the point, or regret wasting your life or something. But I don't know. It said a lot of things, but it didn't follow through on too many of them. But that aside, look, it's an easy plat. There are some video guides around. Some are better than others. I actually use the Steam walkthrough. I tend to prefer text guides. Perhaps at the time of listening, there will be a text guide available specifically for the PS4. But the text guide on Steam works wonderfully. There are 2 slight variations in it, but I'm not going to tell you where they are because you'll figure them out. They're really, really super simple. And to be honest, it's a game that I hesitate to say you don't need a guide because there are a couple of missable trophies, but only like 2 or 3, and there is no chapter select. So I don't know. Maybe you'd want to check that out. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I've got for spam. Does anyone else have anything else?
Just one. I saw this Utaware Rumono Zan or Zen. Yeah, I just noticed that was a 50% plat. I hadn't looked at the trophy list before. I looked at a screenshot and it looked like Valkyrie Drive or something, to the extent that I thought they'd reused assets. But no, looking at this, it looks like it's about a 50% platinum, and it just looks like it's just a beat 'em up, and then you finish it and do a couple of small things and you're done. So that looks great. So that looks like old style spam that I was doing, on my road to 100 pre-rata like a spam.
Yeah, I think, if you're interested, that's about a 15-hour game. There is a guide already available for that game, and there is only a small grind, my understanding, at the end, about a 3 or 4 out of 10. But if you have experience in these games, I don't expect that it would be difficult at all. Very fan servicey game, from a series that's pretty good.
Well, if you're gonna go with old school spam, there's new Walking Dead lists for Walking Dead, the Telltale Definitive.
Yes, should we talk about that?
Well, first of all, stay away because apparently people are having trouble. Maybe they've already patched it, but people were having trouble getting, because I think you do still have to download parts of the game.
Yes.
And apparently, for like I think the North American release, you just can't. It takes you to an error screen. So it looks like they're waiting for a patch, but people are getting the platinum on the EU version. So something to wait for, I think.
That was quite. I mean, it's the Telltale Ghost. It's not refusing to go, is it? It's kicking again. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, Skybound actually put out a public apology that they'd released a game in a broken state. Which so more and more problems for that studio. But look, that aside, because I'm sure they'll fix it if they have not already done so by the time you listen. What do you think of the list? I obviously understand it's all the games in one list, but I understand that for the latest game, the final installment, it's only completing the chapters, so it's removed any of the missable or the other things you had to do. I know you played that, Mindi, the last installment. What do you think? Do you like that?
Yeah, I mean, it puts it into that old school spam that we were talking about. I have no real feelings about this. You still have to actually play that last game. But I guess it's more that you don't have to worry about stuff anymore and you can just play and enjoy instead of, keeping one eye on a trophy guide and making sure that you're not missing any collectibles or any of the missable one-shot trophies. So I guess that's a good thing. But I thought it was more fun. And I say fun because they did the same damn thing every game, where it's just complete chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It was more fun that they actually switched up the trophy list for that last one, and this is definitely going back to it. But they're just playing it safe. I think it's catering a bit towards trophy hunters.
I mean, and look, if you have been living under a rock or you're new to the PlayStation or whatever gaming and you haven't played it, I mean, it's a fantastic deal. Again, if you're not too worried about trophies, I mean, getting all of the games for, I think it's like 70 Australian dollars. So I imagine the equivalent US, that's a pretty good deal if you've never played any of them before. So it could be the way to go. I don't know. I can't really see anything else. Are we happy to draw the line there?
I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, there is a Caravan Stories, listener. So I'll just preface this. This was available months and months ago on the Japanese store. It's an MMO of sorts, I suppose you could call it. The Japanese list can be completed in like 30 minutes if you know what you're doing. The language is not a problem, and there are plenty of guides. Just be careful if you pick up the English version. They've changed the requirements of 2 of the trophies to make them from, I think it was from 10 to something like 10,000. So it's going to change the battles you have to complete or something like this. this. So just bear in mind that it's going to be much more grindy if you pick up, and that is free. So that is worth mentioning on the EU NA store recently. If you're going to do that, it's free on the Japanese store too. That might be the one to go for, I suppose. So look, why don't we shuffle across to the platinums for this week? And look, we're just going to jump in here. So we've got, Resident Daryl, who was a guest last week. He got platinum number 173 Mechabolt. It's possible that he got that plat while he was talking to us. So congratulations, sir. That is impressive. Afraid of the Folly hits number 20 with Until Dawn. And I understand you enjoyed that quite a lot. That's a fantastic game. So well done there. 15K trophy milestone here for Teresa from Icy. Well, look, what a great name, Mindy and Reddy. It's Trophy Addict. I'm sure we've probably all played that game, but whether we remember that trophy or not, I don't know. But look, it was great. And then, look, I see there's been some murmurings about a Discord. Look, I'm a little hesitant about that, listeners. It's not that I don't want to speak to you. I fear that I have nothing left to say. I'm drained after the podcast. So look, we'll think about that further, but please feel free that there are many ways to reach out to us if you need any more of us. My goodness, surely not in your week. And I also noticed, Mindy, that we had a suggestion for a push to plat after dark episode as well. So I don't know if you saw that or not. Maybe we could investigate.
I did see it. I'm all for it. I just don't know what we would talk about.
No, I don't know. Well, horror. I think they want horror things. So I don't know. We'll look into doing that. Yeah. So look,
you and I have very different definitions of what after dark means.
Well, yeah. So look, I feel like I've forgotten something, but I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to forget it and just. Do you think we did everything, Mindy? Have I ever forgotten anything? Are we at the closeout point?
I think we might be at the close. Well, let's see. We talked Metroidvania. We talked Mega Man. I don't think we've forgotten anything.
No. I think we've had enough listeners. I think you've had enough listeners. As always, thank you for joining us. Reddy, if the listener wanted to reach out to you, how could they? If you wanted that, of course, how could they contact you?
Yeah, I don't have any socials, so probably just send me a message on PSN if you really want.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, I'm pretty receptive. If you want some information, if you've seen me playing something that not many other people are playing, you want some info, I'm pretty receptive to that. I'll probably get back to you, pretty quickly.
And what's your PSN?
It's just go to the Skylight free range boards and look for the Only Australian, and you'll find me there. The Only Australian who's platinumed it. That's easier. Like, it's Drag-On-Detritus, but it's got dashes in it and it's hard. So catch me at the bottom of the Australian top 40 if you want, or just go on the Skylight free range boards and see the Only Australian there. That's the easiest way, I think.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll put his name in the show descriptors. And Mindy, where can we find you?
Twitter at themindisacity, PlayStationTrophies.org, or you can donate to my Kofi page tip jar, ko-fi.com/themindisacity.
Fantastic. And look, listeners, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel. You know where to find us. If you listen this far, you've already found us. Yeah, we're available everywhere where good podcast providers provide good podcasts, I suppose you could say, and us. So with that in mind, we are on Twitter. If you have a question, comment, or concern, and you know how I feel about the last ones, you can reach us at push2plat, the number 2plat, push2plat on Twitter, or you can send us an email at push2plat@gmail.com. I know a couple of weeks ago I put a call out that if you're interested in being a guest, please contact us. We're pretty much full up almost now for the year, but please don't forget to send, please feel free to send us a message at any time. We always have, openings and things come up, as we go. Or
that doesn't mean we're not booking people for 2020.
Exactly.
It's just not for 2019.
Exactly right. Yeah. And look, just drop a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and we'll follow up for sure. With that in mind, you can also jump into the Push to Platinum Community Club if you so wish. So thank you for joining us today, listeners. It's been a pleasure. It's been an education for me. What more could I say? And look, I'm going to leave you there. Play what you want, play how you want. If you happen to play the Xbox and Blair Witch,
play Deadly Premonition.
Yes.
Well, we're differing opinions, but Gears 5, whatever you prefer is great. And so with that in mind, thank you for joining us today, Reddy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Not a problem. I hope it was mildly enjoyable for you.
Yeah.
And thanks, Mindy.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
See ya.